For you, Deputy Defence and Military Veterans Minister Bantu Holomisa will share the findings of his visit to the troubled One Military Hospital in Pretoria today. Holomisa visited the healthcare facility as part of government's efforts to restore the hospital to its former glory. Operations there have been marred by deteriorating infrastructure and prolonged refurbishment projects. Newzroom Afrika's Ziniko Mhlaba is tracking that story for us. Ziniko, good afternoon to you. Tell us some of the things that have been flagged insofar as the operation at the hospital is concerned, the running of the hospital.
Very good afternoon to you, Michelle. Yes, indeed, we are now joined by the Deputy Minister of Defence and Military Veterans, General Holomisa. He is here as part of ongoing efforts in terms of engaging different units of the department just to see what is the reality on the ground. And of course, you'll understand that, the military hospital is one of those units. So he's here today just to really check what is it that is happening off the ground in terms of the work that's been done here in terms of infrastructure refurbishment, but also in many other things. So he's joining me now. He has concluded his tour inside the facility. So he is ready to give us more insights in terms of what is it that he found on the ground. Deputy Minister, thank you very much, sir, for your time. Talk to us about the inspiration behind visiting this unit, but also what are some of the key things you discovered and you encountered and you were briefed on in terms of the challenges facing this institution?
Firstly, as we all know, the defunding of the National Defence Force has affected many of our institutions. And as a result of that, the Minister of Defence, Angie Motshekga, and I have taken a decision to visit key areas. We have prioritized the military hospitals and pharmacies of all the military institutions. And we have found that there is a need to make sure that at least the hospitals, as well as the Air Force and the rest of the Defence Force, we have to prioritize those, especially that the climate change has affected the whole of South Africa. We need to be in a state of readiness. What I've found inside is that there's a lot of work which still needs to be done. Yes, the renovations were started, but they were stopped because of some questionable transactions by the previous government. But we cannot sit down on our laurels. We have to make sure that this hospital goes back to its former glory. So we will be presenting to the National Treasury of what we have discovered here, and if need be, the Committee for National Treasury, Portfolio Committee, and Portfolio Committee of Defense can come here jointly so that at least the situation here can be escalated in order to be addressed.
Deputy Minister, you're speaking about the refurbishment work that's taking place here. By May, when the Minister appeared before the Parliamentary Committee, she did mention that she was informed that the first floor was not functional and some of the services were being outsourced. What is the state of the first floor now and the general refurbishment work? What were the key challenges? Can you go deeper, as you just alluded, the fact that there are still some challenges? Can you give us more insights on that?
Well, I'm not going to go into details of what is happening, except to say that the hospital needs to be upgraded, needs to be refurbished, needs to be serviced so that it can operate like a hospital. This hospital has got a rich history, and we cannot allow it to go down like this just because of the defunding of it. But so far, what I've established inside is that they are using certain floors which were upgraded during the COVID, which are in a state, in a good state. But as far as other first floors and others, they are at standstill because everything is still, there's still a legal argument between various groupings. But I'm not interested in that. Is to make sure that there's flexibility, by our officers, and where they say they need something now, we must provide. That's why we are here.
I mean, looking at the importance of this facility and what it was meant to achieve in terms of being available for senior leaders of government, but also dignitaries, do you think the facility still has that capacity to provide the services it was meant to provide to the people?
On a limited scale, it has, but you must remember that this hospital is serving the soldiers as well as the retired soldiers, that is the military veterans. So the capacity of this hospital needs to be increased as of yesterday.
All right, talking about defunding matters, General, in that very particular committee meeting where the minister was, the Hawks were invited, NPA was invited. They did confirm that there are some cases they are working on regarding some of the money spent in terms of the refurbishment. Give us more details now. What have you found? What's the update on those investigations?
Those investigations are still continuing. I guess that the Department of Defense is frustrated like many other South Africans, where the corruption is reported, but the police and Hawks and everybody, SIU, they complete the investigation, but the NPA, you never see them moving forward, either to say we are going to prosecute or we decline to prosecute. There is a need, therefore, for the Department of Justice to check up its work.
What are you going to do now about the issue of the shortage? You're talking about defunding. Money was spent already, but the work is not complete yet. What's going to be the next step in terms of making sure that those monies that were spent already can be accounted for, but also convince your colleague at Treasury to give you more money? How are you going to ensure him that the monies that he might give you are going to be used effectively and can be accounted for?
We have already met the Department of Finance, and we have now the second meeting pending, wherein we finalize our priorities. This hospital is one of those institutions we have prioritized. So I'm not worried much about that now, because we are talking to the National Treasury. And also in that meeting, we may invite SIU and NPA to tell National Treasury where are they. Remember, these are legacy things we have inherited, but we are not folding our arms, we are addressing them.
All right. Let me give you to my colleague if you have some questions there.
Thank you so much, General.
Okay, so the General is taking some breath and drinking some water. We're continuing this conversation here at the Military Hospital.
Glass of wine.
Right. Thank you, General. So, General, sad news indeed if, the hospital, which has been trusted in the past, which has helped so many, even presidents and like so many of, the leaders from other countries are used it. Sad to see the status that you've just told us, General. General, not only this, you mentioned about, lack of funding or cut off funding. General, is it only the hospital, or are you concerned about the SANDF in general, especially, when funds are cut and not enough budget?
Well, everybody knows, even our predecessors have been making the clarion call for the state to intervene in salvaging the decline of defense. And we are continuing with that. And fortunately, President Ramaphosa had said we need to move away from 0.57% of the GDP to 0.1 to 1.5% of the GDP. We are engaging the Department of Treasury on those bases. And we are merely saying, let us implement the directive from the President. For instance, I mentioned that one of the priorities which we need to look at is on the Air Force in general, as well as the prime mission equipment in general. That includes Navy, Air Force, and Army, and this institution. So it's time that we wake up and prioritize the issue of national security. We have been neglected for almost 30 years because the government at the time in 1998 opted to invest more on social security as opposed to military security. So I hope they are listening.
Indeed, if they don't listen, General, what's the risk of the hospital?
Well, if they are not listening, the parliament has to intervene, because the directive which was given by the president is given to National Treasury. So why are they not complying with that instruction? So I'm not worried much now that we use that directive. But Parliament has got a role to say, let us discuss the security situation of South Africa. What kind of national threat we are facing. That is the responsibility of Parliament. If there are resolutions from Parliament, the National Treasury have to go and readjust.
Indeed, state security, General, it is a huge task, but a responsibility. But also, if maybe, General, you are underfunded, does it put risk state security on itself? I mean, for example, recently we had the minister in the presidency, mentioning that government has identified coup and like state security, General.
Well, state security of any country, I guess, is always a priority. So I don't want to get involved into the reports of what comes from the cabinet, because they are privy to better briefings. So if there is anyone who has such plans, I think he or she is advised to stop that, because it has been exposed. A coup is not discussed on social media and so on. So that's not a coup. So,
DM, just to skip in there, but should there be a serious threat, do you think the defense, the country's military, can cope, can be able to defend its citizens as its mandate?
Yes, we are not expecting a conventional warfare in South Africa. The major threat which I foresee would be around civil disobedience, where we are asked by police to assist them and protect them. In that case, we will be ready to assist police. But as far as fighting an outside war and so on, with outside players or countries, that is not in the offing as we speak.
Do you think the country has learned, especially the executive, has learned from the 2021 unrest in terms of being proactive, in terms of trying to prevent things that might lead to what we saw in 2021? And should there be any civil unrest right now? Do you think we've got the capacity, enough conversations and measures have been put in place?
Well, the Minister of State Security did table a report, and I think they seem to be, at least this time around, ahead of their game. And anyone who wants to use violence, I think the South African security in general combined, they can deal with that matter. But I don't think that we should start pressing panic buttons.
Thank you very much, DM, for your time, sir. Thank you, sir. That's the Deputy Minister of Defence and Military Veterans, just giving us more insights in terms of his visit here and the state of the institution, but also giving us some responses towards the very same conversation that has been taking place on whether South Africa is at risk of any war and whether we can cope should the threat be serious. So that's where we're going to leave things here.